The attack came 3 days later, just as Emma was getting ready for school. Mike was making breakfast when every electronic device in the apartment suddenly went dead. No power, no lights, no phone signals. In the eerie silence that followed, Zara appeared in the kitchen doorway, face pale with terror. "They are here," she whispered, through the window. Mike could see unmarked black vans pulling up outside his building. Men in tactical gear were already entering the lobby. Professional, organized, and definitely not human despite their appearance. "Shapeshifters," Zara confirmed, seeing his expression. "The collectors employ many species. How long do we have?" "Minutes." Mike's mind raced through options. His apartment was on the 3rd floor with no fire escape. The hallways would be blocked. But there was one possibility he'd been hoping never to use. "Emma!" "Kai, come here right now." Both girls appeared, sensing the urgency in his voice. Emma clutched her backpack while Kai stayed close to Zara's side. "We're playing a special hiding game," Mike told them, trying to keep his voice calm. "Remember how I showed you the maintenance panel in my closet? We're all going to hide there until the game is over." The maintenance panel accessed the building's old dumbwaiter system, long since converted to house electrical and plumbing access. Mike had discovered during his construction work that the shaft connected to the building's basement utility room. It would be a tight squeeze for all of them, but it was their only chance. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside as Mike quickly gathered emergency supplies. Zara had packed their few belongings in seconds, moving with efficiency born of too much practice running. "Daddy," Emma whispered as he lifted the panel. "Are the bad guys here?" "Some people who don't understand that families should stay together," Mike said honestly. "But we're not going to let them win." The shaft was dark and cramped. Mike went first, then helped Emma down. Kai followed with the natural agility of her species, while Zara came last. Sealing the panel behind them just as their apartment door exploded inward, the journey down 3 floors through mechanical spaces was nightmare fuel with 2 small children, but both girls stayed silent. Mike could hear Kai making barely audible comfort sounds to Emma. While Emma squeezed the alien child's hand in response, they reached the basement as voices erupted above them. The building's maintenance room was dusty and filled with pipes, but it had 2 advantages: a separate exit that led to the adjacent building's parking garage, and a landline phone that still worked. Mike called Danny while Zara stood guard at the door. "The safe house?" Mike whispered when his brother answered. "We need extraction now." "On our way." 15 minutes. They didn't have 15 minutes? Footsteps thundered overhead as the collectors searched every apartment systematically. It would take them time to figure out the escape route, but not much. "There's another way," Zara said quietly. "I can surrender myself." "They will stop hunting if they have me." "Absolutely not." "Michael, they cannot be bargained with or reasoned with." "If they take me, you and the children will be safe. And Kai will be alone." Mike's voice was firm. "That's not happening." Instead, he led them through the parking garage toward the street. Danny's security team would meet them at the predetermined location 6 blocks away. They just had to stay ahead of their pursuers. The first 2 blocks went smoothly. Emma and Kai held hands as they moved through early morning crowds. To casual observers, they looked like a family walking to school. The 3rd block is where everything went wrong. A man in a business suit stepped directly into their path. He looked completely human until he smiled, revealing teeth like obsidian razors. "Zara of the Sihari," he said in a voice like grinding metal. "You have led us quite a chase." More figures emerged from doorways and alleyways. At least 8 of them, all wearing human faces but moving with predatory grace that belonged to no Earth species. "Papa Mike," Kai whispered. Pressing closer to him, the sound of his daughter calling him by the Sahari family name triggered something primal in Mike's chest. These things wanted to hurt his children. That was not acceptable. "Here's how this is going to work," the lead collector said. "You give us the Sihari and we let your human offspring live. Refuse and we take them all." "Counteroffer," Mike said, stepping protectively in front of both girls. You turn around and leave, and I don't make you regret coming to my planet. Several collectors laughed. Human arrogance. You have no weapons, no advantages, and no hope. Wrong on all counts, Mike replied. That's when Danny's team arrived. The first indication was a sniper's bullet taking out the collector to Mike's left. The second was smoke grenades filling the street. The third was Danny's voice shouting, "Get down and stay down!" What followed was less a firefight and more a demonstration of why humans had become the dominant species on their world through careful application of violence. Danny's security team wasn't just ex-military. They were the kind of ex-military that specialized in problems other people couldn't solve. The collectors were faster and stronger than humans individually. But they'd made two critical errors. First, they'd underestimated human tactical coordination. Second, they'd threatened human children in front of human parents. Mike threw himself over Emma and Kai as gunfire erupted around them. Through the chaos, he watched his species do what it did best, protect its own with overwhelming, coordinated aggression. The battle lasted less than 3 minutes. When the smoke cleared, 5 collectors were down and the other 3 were retreating with wounds that leaked fluid too dark to be blood. "Move!" Danny shouted, pulling them toward an armored vehicle. "Backup units are en route." The safe house turned out to be a cabin in the mountains, 3 hours outside Portland. Isolated, defensible, and stocked with enough supplies to last weeks. Danny's people had thought of everything. As they settled in for what might be a long stay, Mike found himself on the cabin's porch with Zara, watching Emma and Kai play in the yard. The alien child was teaching Emma how to identify constellations visible in daylight, while Emma showed Kai how to skip stones across the nearby stream. "Your species is remarkable," Zara said quietly. The collectors expected individual resistance. They were unprepared for a coordinated tribal defense. "We're good at protecting our families," Mike agreed. "Sometimes a little too good." "Kai calls you Papa Mike now. In our language, that designation is reserved for permanent family bonds." Mike watched his daughter laughing as Kai demonstrated some kind of zero-gravity movement that made her seem to float momentarily above the ground. "Good," he said, "because that's exactly what this is." Over the following days, Danny's contacts worked to create new identities for Zara and Kai, not just fake documents, but entire life histories that would stand up to scrutiny. The official story would be that they were refugees from a war-torn country. With Mike serving as their official guardian, the collectors would keep looking. But Earth was a big planet with billions of humans who took a dim view of anyone who threatened children. Finding two Sahari among all that chaos would be nearly impossible, especially with human authorities who were suddenly very interested in investigating reports of unusual individuals conducting hunting operations in populated areas. 3 weeks later, Mike stood in a family court as a judge made the adoption official. The legal paperwork listed Kai as a war orphan from an undisclosed location, but the bonds being formalized were absolutely real. "Congratulations," the judge said, smiling at the unusual family. "I hope you'll all be very happy together." That evening, Mike tucked both girls into the bunk beds they'd set up in Emma's room. Kai had adapted to human customs quickly, though she still made soft, chirping sounds as she settled down to sleep. "Daddy," Emma said as he turned off the lights. "Are we safe now?" "Yes, sweetheart. We're safe." "Good, I like having a sister from space. She knows the best games." From the bottom bunk came a sleepy chirp that Mike had learned meant family love safety. 6 months later, Mike received a message through channels Danny had established. Other Sahari survivors had been found, and were being quietly relocated to safe worlds by an underground network of species who opposed the collectors. Zara wept when she heard the news, knowing her people would survive. "Will you go to them?" Mike asked, though the thought of losing his expanded family made his chest ache. "This is our home now," Zara replied, watching Emma teach Kai to ride a bicycle in their new backyard. "Kai has bonded with Emma as deeply as she bonded with you. Separating them would harm them both. And you?" Zara smiled. the expression more human than it had been when they first met. I have learned that family is not defined by species or planet of origin. It is defined by choice and love. That night, as Mike watched his wife, because that's what Zara had become, though they were still figuring out the legal and cultural complications help both girls with homework, he reflected on how much his life had changed. He'd started as a single father doing his best to raise his daughter alone. Now he was part of something bigger. A family that spanned species and defied every conventional definition, but worked because they'd chosen each other. Emma had been right to worry about the storm hurting someone, but she'd also been right about finding shelter. Sometimes the best families were the ones you built from survivors, refugees, and anyone else who needed a safe place to. Mike woke to the sound of Emma's laughter drifting from the living room. For a moment, he'd forgotten about his unexpected guests. Then reality crashed back and he bolted upright, checking his clock. 7 a.m. Emma was usually up early, but she was supposed to stay in her room until he got up. He threw on clothes and hurried out, expecting to find chaos. Instead, he found Magic. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor next to the couch, showing Kai her collection of toy dinosaurs. The alien child was making soft chirping sounds that Mike realized were expressions of delight. Kai would pick up each dinosaur carefully, examine it with those mirror-like eyes, then make a sound that Emma seemed to understand perfectly. "Daddy!" Emma beamed when she saw him. "This is Kai. She's from space. Look, she can make the same noises as the dinosaurs in my book." Kai looked up at Mike and made a sound that was unmistakably a greeting. The little alien had arranged the dinosaurs in a complex pattern that somehow looked like the star constellation from Emma's ceiling projector. "Where's—" Mike started to ask, then spotted Zara standing in his kitchen. The tall alien was examining his coffee maker with intense curiosity. "Good morning," Zara said, the words more confident than last night. "I hope it is acceptable that Kai engaged with your offspring. They seem to communicate naturally." Mike watched Emma showing Kai how to make a T-Rex roar. Both children dissolved into giggles. "Yeah, that's fine. How are you feeling?" Zara moved stiffly but seemed much better than the previous night. "Your medical supplies were sufficient. My species heals rapidly when safe." There was emphasis on that last word. "About that," Mike said quietly, glancing at the girls. "What exactly are you running from?" Zara's expression darkened. Collectors, beings who harvest rare species for profit. My people, the Sihari, are considered valuable because of our learning abilities. We can absorb and understand any language, any culture within days of exposure." Zara's hands clenched. "They destroyed our home station to capture survivors. Most of my people are dead or enslaved." Mike felt sick. "And they're here? On Earth?" "Not yet. But they track escape pods." "They will come." Zara looked at Kai playing with Emma. "I had hoped to hide long enough to find passage off-world. But Kai needs stability, safety, things I cannot provide while running." Mike poured 2 cups of coffee, offering one to Zara. The alien sniffed it curiously before taking a careful sip. Its eyes widened with surprise and something like pleasure. "This is remarkable. The stimulant effect is mild but pleasant. Your species consumes this regularly?" "Most of us, yeah. Some of us are addicted to it." Mike managed a weak smile. "Look, about the collectors. How long do we have?" "Unknown. Perhaps days. Perhaps weeks. Their ships are not designed for atmospheric entry. They will send scouts first or hire local agents?" "Local agents. There are always those willing to sell others for profit regardless of species." Mike thought about that while watching Emma teach Kai how to stack blocks. His daughter had accepted their alien guests with the easy adaptability of childhood. To her, Kai was just a new friend who looked different and came from far away. "Zara," he said slowly, "what would happen to Kai if something happened to you?" The alien's face went pale. "She would be alone. Sihari children cannot survive without family connection. We are social beings. Isolation would—" Zara's voice broke. "She would fade. And if the collectors catch you both? We would be separated, sold to different buyers. Kai is young enough to be trained as a pet or curiosity. I would likely be forced to use my abilities for intelligence gathering or translation for criminal enterprises. Mike set down his coffee cup harder than necessary. That's not going to happen. You are kind, Michael-chan, but you cannot fight beings with advanced technology and no moral constraints. Maybe not, but I can make it a lot harder for them to find you. Mike pulled out his phone. I need to make some calls. Over the next hour, Mike contacted 3 people. First, his brother Danny, who worked for a private security company and knew people who knew people. Second, his friend Sarah from his construction company, who had connections with what she euphemistically called off-the-books problem solvers. Third, his lawyer, who specialized in immigration issues and might know how to navigate legal protection for refugees, even unusual ones. While he made calls, Zara and the children had migrated to Emma's room. Mike could hear Emma explaining each of her toys in detail, while Kai responded with increasingly complex chirping patterns. Kai is teaching Emma some of our language, Zara explained when Mike found them. And Emma is teaching Kai about Earth culture through play. Your daughter has a natural gift for communication. Emma was holding up her favorite book, a picture story about a lost puppy finding a family. Kai was listening intently, occasionally pointing at pictures and making sounds that Emma seemed to understand. She says the puppy reminds her of herself, Emma translated confidently. Before she found us. Mike's chest tightened. Emma, sweetheart, can you show Kai your art supplies? I need to talk to Zara for a minute. Once the girls were occupied with crayons and paper, Mike led Zara to his bedroom for privacy. I've been thinking, he said. You said Sahari children need family connection to survive, right? Yes, it is biological as much as emotional. We are pack creatures. What if Kai had a human family? Would that work? Zara blinked in surprise. It is theoretically possible. Sahari are adaptable. If Kai formed genuine bonds with humans, especially one she sees as a parental figure. The alien trailed off, studying Mike's face. You are suggesting adoption? I'm suggesting that if something happens to you, Kai doesn't have to be alone. Emma already loves her. Mike ran his hands through his hair. I lost my wife 2 years ago. Emma and we know what it's like to have our family torn apart. We know how to put pieces back together. You would do this? Accept responsibility for an alien child? I'm already doing it. The question is whether it's something that could actually save her life. Zara was quiet for a long moment. There would be a bonding process. Kai would need to accept you as family, not just a friendly stranger. For Sahari, this involves sharing what you would call memories or experiences. It creates an emotional connection that transcends species. What does that involve? Physical contact while Kai is in a relaxed state? She would share her memories of safety and happiness with you, and you would share similar memories with her. If the bonding takes hold, she would recognize you as family in all the ways that matter to Sahari's survival. Mike thought about Emma teaching Kai to roar like dinosaurs. About both girls laughing together over picture books. About the way Kai had arranged the toys in star patterns, showing intelligence and creativity that transcended language barriers. Let's do it. Michael, you must understand. Once bonded, Kai will grieve you as deeply as she would grieve me if you are lost. This is not a temporary arrangement. For Sahari, family bonds are permanent. Good, Mike said firmly. Because for humans, they are too. That afternoon, while Emma napped, Zara explained the bonding process in more detail. It was surprisingly simple. Mike would sit with Kai in a quiet space, both of them relaxed. He would place his hand on her forehead while thinking about moments of love, safety, and family. She would do the same. It may not work, Zara warned. Cross-species bonding is rare, but Kai has already shown unusual comfort with you and Emma, and you... The alien studied his face. You have the emotional capacity. I can sense it. They set up in Emma's room, using soft blankets and dim lighting to create a calm atmosphere. Kai seemed to understand what was happening. She settled next to Mike without fear, her large eyes trusting, when Mike placed his hand gently on her forehead. He was surprised by the warmth of her skin. Almost immediately, images began flowing through his mind. Not his own memories, but Kai's. He saw her home station through her eyes. Beautiful crystalline structures floating in space, filled with beings like Zara moving in graceful harmony. He felt her joy playing with other Sahari children in zero-gravity gardens. Her wonder at learning new concepts. Her absolute trust and love for Zara. Then came the darker memories. The attack. The terror as everything she knew was destroyed. The escape pod journey, days of fear and uncertainty. The cold, wet night in the alley, thinking they would die. But mixed with those memories were newer ones. The relief when Mike found them. The warmth of his apartment. The delight of meeting Emma. The first feeling of safety she'd had since leaving her destroyed home. In return, Mike shared his own memories of love and protection. Emma's birth, the overwhelming rush of paternal instinct, teaching her to walk, to read, to be brave when the world seemed scary. The promise he'd made at his wife's funeral to always be there for his daughter. The fierce protectiveness that came with being a parent. When the sharing ended, Kai looked up at Mike with eyes that held new understanding. She reached up with small hands and touched his face gently, then made a sound that Zara translated as, "Papa friend." "It worked," Zara whispered, tears shimmering in her eyes. "She recognizes you as family now. If something happens to me, she will not fade. She will grieve, but she will survive." Mike pulled Kai into a gentle hug, feeling the rightness of it in a way that transcended logic. This small alien child was part of his family now. He would protect her tea. The rain hammered against the windows of Mike Chun's apartment as he tucked his 6-year-old daughter Emma into bed. Thunder rolled overhead, making the little girl clutch her stuffed elephant tighter. "Daddy, what if the storm hurts someone outside?" Emma asked, her brown eyes wide with concern. Mike smoothed her hair back. "That's why we have safe places, sweetheart. Everyone finds shelter when they need it." He had no idea how prophetic those words would be. 2 hours later, Mike was reviewing construction blueprints at his kitchen table when a sound cut through the storm. Not thunder this time, but something metallic scraping against concrete in the alley behind his building. Living in downtown Portland, weird noises weren't uncommon. But this felt different, urgent. Against his better judgment, Mike grabbed a flashlight and headed downstairs. The apartment building's back door led to a narrow alley where residents kept their trash bins. As he pushed open the heavy door, wind and rain immediately soaked through his t-shirt. The flashlight beam swept across wet pavement until it caught something impossible, a figure hunched behind the dumpster. But this wasn't any homeless person he'd ever seen. The being was tall, maybe 7 feet, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. What he first thought was a hooded coat was actually some kind of organic covering, like scales or feathers that had been damaged. Dark fluid blood, maybe dripped from several wounds along the creature's arm, but what made Mike's heart stop wasn't the alien appearance. It was the small figure pressed against the being's side. A child, no bigger than Emma, with the same silvery skin and large, frightened eyes that reflected the flashlight like mirrors. The adult alien noticed Mike and tried to stand, swaying dangerously. It spoke in a voice like wind chimes, words he couldn't understand but tone he recognized immediately. The universal sound of a parent trying to stay strong for their child. Mike lowered his flashlight and raised his free hand slowly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The alien tilted its head, then spoke again. This time, Mike caught fragments he somehow understood. The being was injured, had been running, needed somewhere safe for the little one. Every reasonable part of Mike's brain screamed that this was insane. But looking at that small alien child, shivering and scared, he thought of Emma upstairs. What would he want someone to do if she was hurt and alone? "Come on," Mike said, gesturing toward the door. "Let's get you both inside." The alien hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. It struggled to its feet, keeping the child close. Mike noticed the being moved like someone with broken ribs. Each step careful and painful. Getting them up 2 flights of stairs took 20 minutes. The alien had to stop frequently, breathing hard through what Mike assumed was pain. The child never left its side, occasionally making soft chirping sounds that the adult answered with gentle touches. Mike's apartment felt tiny with a 7-foot alien in it. But as he turned on the lights, he got his first clear look at their faces. The adult had features that were almost human: 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth but elongated and delicate. Beautiful, actually. The child looked like a perfect smaller version. "My name is Mike," he said, pointing to himself. Then he gestured to them with raised eyebrows. The adult alien considered this, then pointed to itself and said something that sounded like Zara. Then it touched the child gently and said what might have been Kai. "Zara and Kai," Mike repeated. And both aliens' faces lit up with something like relief. Zara swayed again, and Mike quickly brought over his desk chair. As the alien sat, he could see more of the injuries. Deep scratches along one arm, a nasty cut on the forehead, and the way Zara held its left side suggested internal damage. "You're hurt," Mike said, miming pain by wincing and holding his own side. "Hospital? Doctor?" The reaction was immediate and terrifying. Zara's eyes went wide with panic, and it pulled Kai closer while shaking its head frantically. The child started making distressed sounds. Okay, Mike said quickly, raising his hands. "No hospital. I understand." He disappeared into his bathroom and returned with his first aid kit. It wasn't much, but antiseptic was antiseptic. As he approached with cotton swabs and bandages, Zara watched warily but didn't stop him. Cleaning the wounds revealed that Zara's blood was a deep purple color, but it clotted like human blood. The cuts were clean, almost surgical. These weren't accidental injuries. "Someone hurt you on purpose," Mike said quietly as he worked. He looked up at Zara's face and saw understanding there. And feared that while he bandaged the arm, Kai crept closer. The alien child was curious about everything: the lamp, the couch cushions, a coffee mug on the side table. When Kai spotted Emma's coloring book on the floor, those mirror-like eyes went huge with fascination. "You like pictures?" Mike asked. He opened the book to a page Emma had colored the family of 4 stick figures outside a house. Kai pointed at it and made excited chirping sounds to Zara. Zara looked at the drawing, then at Mike, then around the apartment. When its gaze landed on the framed photo of Mike and Emma at the zoo, something shifted in its expression. "My daughter," Mike explained, pointing to the photo. "Emma, she's sleeping." He mimed, laying his head on his hands. Understanding dawned in Zara's eyes. This human had a child too. The alien looked at Kai, then back at Mike, and Mike could practically see the internal debate happening. Finally, Zara pointed to itself and Kai, then made a gesture Mike interpreted as traveling or running. Then it pointed to Kai alone and mimed sleeping or safety. "You've been running," Mike said, "and you need somewhere safe for Kai." Zara nodded, then did something unexpected. It reached into what Mike had thought was clothing but was apparently some kind of organic pouch and pulled out a small device. When Zara touched it, a holographic image appeared in the air. The image showed what looked like a space station or massive ship. Inside, Mike could see dozens of beings like Zara and Kai living in what appeared to be a peaceful community. Then the image changed, showing the same place under attack. Ships with unfamiliar designs firing weapons. Buildings collapsing. People aliens running in panic. The final image showed Zara and Kai in some kind of escape pod, hurtling through space. "Your home was destroyed," Mike whispered. Zara's face crumpled with grief, and it pulled Kai closer. The child seemed to sense its parents' pain and nuzzled against Zara's neck, making soft comforting sounds. Mike felt his chest tighten. He knew that look, that desperate need to protect your child when everything else was gone. He'd felt it himself after Emma's mother died in the car accident 2 years ago. The overwhelming responsibility of being the only thing standing between your kid and a world that suddenly seemed hostile. "You can stay here," he said firmly. "Both of you. As long as you need." Zara looked up sharply, as if not believing what it heard. Mike gestured around the apartment, then pointed to Zara and Kai, then made a sleeping gesture. "Stay safe. No one will hurt you here." For a moment, Zara just stared at him. Then tears, actual tears, though they shimmered like mercury, began rolling down its face. The alien reached out slowly and touched Mike's hand with fingers that were longer than human but surprisingly warm. When their eyes met, Mike felt something pass between them. Not telepathy exactly, but a recognition. Parent to parent. Survivor to survivor. "Thank you," Zara whispered in perfect English, the words careful but clear. Mike blinked in surprise. "You understand me?" "Learning," Zara said, tapping its temple. "Your language. Patterns become clear with time. How long have you been here?" "On Earth?" "3 of your days, hiding, watching. Kai grows weak without proper shelter." Mike looked at the small alien child, who was now curled up against Zara's side, eyes drooping with exhaustion. "Then let's get you both some rest," Mike said. "We'll figure out everything else tomorrow." As he set up his couch with extra blankets and pillows, Mike couldn't help but think about Emma's words from earlier. What if the storm hurt someone outside? Well, the storm had hurt someone. 2 someones. But they'd found shelter now. He just hoped he was strong enough to keep them safe from whatever was hunting them.